The lecture hall buzzed with the soft hum of translation devices as 200 cadets from 17 different species settled into their seats. Hannah sat in the back row, a notebook open on the desk in front of her. She had learned to stay quiet during these classes. Being one of only 3 humans at the Galactic Naval Academy meant she attracted enough attention already. Professor Veltaris glided to the center of the stage, his chromatic skin shifting through calm blues and greens. He was Quilarian, a species known throughout the galaxy for their scientific achievements and meticulous record-keeping. Today's lecture was the final session on planetary classification, specifically the most dangerous category, Class 12, Deathworlds. The holographic display flickered to life above the professor's head, showing a spinning sphere of blue and green swirled with white clouds. Hannah recognized it immediately. Her chest tightened slightly, but she remained still. "This," Professor Veltaris announced, his voice carrying through the hall's acoustic systems, "is the perfect example of why certain worlds must remain forever off-limits to sentient life." The image rotated slowly, looking deceptively peaceful from space. Several cadets leaned forward, curious about what made this particular planet so dangerous. Designation: Sol 3, commonly called Earth in the local system's ancient databases. The professor continued. It represents the most extreme category of hostile environment. Let me detail exactly why no intelligent species could possibly evolve or survive on such a world. Hannah's friend Jiho, sitting 2 seats away, glanced at her. She gave him a slight shake of her head. Not yet. The professor's display shifted to show Earth's sun. First, the radiation problem. This yellow dwarf star bombards the planet's surface with dangerous levels of ultraviolet radiation. Any unprotected organic tissue would suffer cellular damage within minutes. The locals would need to develop elaborate protection systems just to exist outside during their daytime. Several cadets made notes. One Centauran student raised a tentacle, asking about atmospheric shielding. Insufficient, Professor Veltaris replied. The atmosphere provides minimal protection. Now, regarding that atmosphere, he pulled up a chemical breakdown. Highly corrosive oxygen composition at 21%. This element literally breaks down organic compounds through oxidation. It rusts metal. Imagine what it does to living tissue over time. A Draken cadet in the 3rd row shifted uncomfortably. His species breathed a methane-based mixture and found oxygen actively poisonous. The gravity, the professor continued, warming to his subject, measures 9.8 meters per second squared, nearly double our galactic standard. Any species evolving there would need impossibly dense bone structure and powerful muscular systems just to stand upright. The cardiovascular strain alone would limit lifespan drastically. The display shifted again, showing tectonic activity. The planet's crust is fractured into massive plates that constantly grind against each other. This creates frequent seismic events that can level entire regions without warning. The geological instability would make permanent settlement essentially impossible. Hannah remembered her grandmother's house in the countryside, built to sway gently during earthquakes. She remembered being taught as a child to stay calm during tremors, to find safe spaces and wait them out. It had seemed normal then. Weather systems, Professor Veltaris said, pulling up images of hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. The temperature differentials and atmospheric pressure variations create storms of incredible violence. Wind speeds that can destroy structures. Frozen water falls from the sky in solid form, sometimes the size of small stones at terminal velocity. A Vespian student made a clicking sound of distress. Her species came from a world with carefully stable climate patterns. And the water itself presents another hazard, the professor added. Vast oceans cover 70% of the surface. This water, contains dissolved salts and minerals, making it undrinkable. It teems with microscopic organisms, many of them pathogenic. Swimming in it without protection would introduce countless dangerous elements into any body system. Hana thought about summer days at the beach, the taste of salt on her lips, the feel of sand between her toes. She thought about diving under waves, feeling the ocean's power and rhythm. The biodiversity represents perhaps the most terrifying aspect, Professor Veltaris continued, his skin flickering orange with academic excitement. Earth developed what biologists call an evolutionary arms race. Predators evolved specifically to hunt and kill other organisms. Prey species evolved defenses. This created an endless cycle of escalating violence. Images flashed across the display. Lions, sharks, bears, snakes, spiders, jellyfish. Each one annotated with threat assessments and lethality ratings. Some of these predators hunt in packs with coordinated strategies. Others use venom that can kill within minutes. Many combine strength, speed, and intelligence in ways that would challenge even our most advanced combat systems. And remember, these are just the large organisms. The microscopic level hosts countless bacteria, viruses, and parasites evolved specifically to invade and consume other living things. A ripple of unease passed through the classroom. This was the stuff of nightmares for species that had evolved on gentler worlds. In summary, Professor Veltaris concluded, Earth represents the absolute extreme of hostile planetary conditions. It combines nearly every environmental danger we can catalog: radiation exposure, atmospheric toxicity, extreme gravity, geological instability, violent weather, undrinkable water, and a biosphere actively trying to kill you. Thankfully, such death worlds remain sterile and unreachable. No sentient species could possibly evolve in such conditions, and even if they did, they certainly could not thrive or develop civilization. The professor paused, looking out over the class with satisfaction. This was his favorite lecture, the grand finale of the semester's planetary classification course. In the back row, Hana raised her hand. It took a moment for Professor Veltaris to notice. Human students were still unusual enough that their gestures sometimes went unrecognized. When he finally saw her hand raised, his skin shifted to curious purple. Yes, Cadet Hana? Do you have a question about the classification system? Hana stood slowly. Around her, other students turned to look. She could feel Jiho tense beside her, and 3 rows ahead, she saw Taiyang, the 3rd human cadet, sit up straighter. Not a question, Professor, she said clearly. Her voice carried in the suddenly quiet hall. More of a correction. Professor Veltaris' skin flickered with confusion. A correction? Yes, sir. Hana took a breath. Earth isn't sterile. It isn't unreachable. I grew up there. The silence that fell over the lecture hall was absolute. 200 students froze. Translation devices checked and rechecked their output, certain they had made an error. I walked on Earth barefoot, Hana continued, her voice steady. I swam in those oceans you mentioned. I drank water from streams. I climbed mountains without breathing apparatus. I lived through earthquakes and storms. Earth isn't a theoretical death world, Professor. It's my home. Professor Veltaris' skin cycled rapidly through colors indicating shock, disbelief, and confusion. His mouth opened and closed several times before words emerged. That's impossible. You're saying you evolved on a Class 12 death world. That's absurd. The classification system is based on centuries of xenobiological research. No species could. With respect, Professor. Jiho spoke up, standing beside Hana. We're all from Earth. All 3 human cadets here. We're not theoretical. We're proof that your classification system might need revision. In the front row, Taiyang stood as well. 3 humans standing together, representing the impossible. The lecture hall erupted. Students shouted questions in a dozen languages. Translation devices overloaded trying to keep up. Some cadets activated their personal datapads, frantically searching for information about Earth and humans. Others simply stared, their various anatomies expressing universal shock. Professor Veltaris raised his appendages for silence, but the chaos continued. Finally, the Academy's alert system chimed, overriding the noise. An administrative voice echoed through the hall. All classes are suspended. Cadets Hannah, Jiho, and Taiyang are to report immediately to the medical center. Professor Veltaris, you are summoned to an emergency faculty meeting. All other students return to your quarters. As the hall slowly emptied, students giving the three humans wide berth, Hannah gathered her belongings. Her hands shook slightly. She had known this moment would come eventually, but standing up in front of everyone had been harder than she expected. Mira, a Centauran cadet who shared some of Hannah's classes, approached cautiously. Her bioluminescent patterns flickered with uncertainty. Is it true? Myra asked quietly. You really lived on that world? Hannah nodded. Born and raised in a city called Bizon. It's on the coast, right next to the ocean. Myra's patterns pulsed with something like awe mixed with fear. How are you alive? Hannah smiled faintly. We adapt. Humans are good at that. As the three human cadets left the lecture hall, heading toward whatever tests and questions awaited them, Hannah looked back one last time. The holographic Earth still spun slowly above the empty stage, looking peaceful and blue and completely ordinary. She wondered if the galaxy was ready to learn the truth about humanity. She wondered if she was ready for what came next. Behind them, the medical center gleamed with sterile white surfaces and the soft hum of diagnostic equipment. Hannah sat on an examination platform while three xenobiologists argued in the corner. Their translation devices created a chaotic mix of overlapping languages as they debated what test to run first. Dr. Yuna, the human medical officer assigned to the academy, stood beside Hannah with her arms crossed. She looked amused despite the tension in the room. They're trying to figure out if you're actually real, Yuna whispered. I noticed, Hannah replied, watching as one biologist waved a scanning device in her direction while another frantically took notes. The door slid open and Administrator Quinn entered, followed by Professor Veltaris and a dozen other faculty members. Quinn was Vespian, insectoid, with multifaceted eyes that glittered with intelligence. Her wings buzzed softly as she approached. We need to establish the facts, Quinn said without preamble. If humans truly evolved on Earth, as you claim, then our entire understanding of Deathworld biology requires immediate revision. We'll begin with basic tests. What Administrator Quinn called basic tests turned out to be extensive. For the next 6 hours, Hannah, Jiho, and Taiyang submitted to every scan and measurement the medical staff could devise. Blood samples, tissue analysis, bone density measurements, respiratory capacity, cardiovascular stress tests. The results confounded everyone. This bone structure, one biologist muttered, examining Hannah's skeletal scans. It's incredibly dense. And these muscle attachments, the leverage ratios are remarkable. But how does the circulatory system support this much tissue mass under such high gravity? Dr. Yuna stepped forward. The heart is proportionally larger than most species. 4 chambers, dual circuit system. And the blood carries oxygen using iron-based hemoglobin molecules. It's quite efficient. Iron-based? Another biologist looked horrified. In an oxygen-rich atmosphere? The oxidation alone should what? Jiho asked mildly. Should kill us? We've been breathing oxygen our entire lives. Our bodies are designed for it. The tests continued. They asked Hannah to breathe different atmospheric mixtures. When she casually inhaled air at standard galactic composition, which had only 12% oxygen, the monitors showed her body immediately compensating. Her heart rate increased. Her breathing deepened. After 5 minutes, she felt dizzy but functional. "You can survive in low-oxygen environments," a biologist noted with amazement. "Your body adapts in real time. We live at different altitudes on Earth," Hana explained. "Mountains have thinner air. Our bodies adjust." Tian volunteered for the next test, healing capacity. Dr. Yuna made a small incision on his forearm while the xenobiologists watched. Within seconds, blood began clotting. Within minutes, the bleeding stopped completely. The biologists took samples of the forming scab, examining the cascade of cellular responses with fascination. "There's an entire army of specialized cells responding to the injury," one scientist breathed. "White blood cells, platelets, stem cells. It's like watching a coordinated military operation at the microscopic level." "That's basically what it is," Dr. Yuna confirmed. "The human immune system is constantly at war with pathogens. We're exposed to billions of bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms daily. Our bodies have evolved sophisticated defenses." "You're fighting a war inside your own bodies?" a Quilarian biologist asked, his skin pale with shock. "All the time?" "Pretty much," Jiho said. "Right now, my immune system is probably destroying thousands of foreign cells. It's normal." The revelation seemed to disturb the aliens more than any other fact they'd learned so far. By the time word spread through the academy, students had gathered outside the medical center. When the human cadets finally emerged, exhausted from hours of testing, they found themselves walking through a corridor lined with staring faces from a dozen different species that the next day brought different tests. Combat instructor Krell announced he would personally evaluate the human cadets' physical capabilities. He was Draken, a warrior species that had dominated military academies for generations. His scaled hide bore the scars of countless battles, and his reputation for being harsh but fair was legendary. Krell stood in the center of the training arena, arms crossed, looking skeptical. "I've read the medical reports," he growled. "Dense bones and efficient hearts are fine on paper. Let's see what you can actually do." The first test was simple: gravity tolerance. The arena could simulate different planetary conditions. Krell set it to standard galactic gravity, which was roughly half of Earth's 9.8 meters per second squared. Hannah stepped into the field and immediately felt lighter. Her movements became effortless, almost bouncy. When Krell asked her to run, she practically flew across the arena floor. Her jumps carried her 3 times higher than on Earth. Krell's eyes narrowed. He increased the gravity to galactic standard, then beyond. At Earth normal gravity, most of the watching cadets would have been struggling to stand. Hannah moved normally. When Krell pushed it higher, to 12 meters per second squared, Hannah began to slow down. But she didn't collapse. "Enough," Krell said, sounding impressed despite himself. He reset the gravity. "Combat evaluation. You'll face one of my advanced students." The Draken student who stepped forward outweighed Hannah by at least 50 kilograms. His muscles rippled under armored scales. He grinned confidently. The match lasted 47 seconds. Hannah didn't try to overpower her opponent. Instead, she moved constantly, using speed and endurance that came from ancestors who chased prey across vast distances. The Draken student was strong and fast in bursts, but Hannah simply outlasted him. When he swung, she wasn't there. When he charged, she sidestepped. When he finally slowed from exhaustion, she swept his legs and pinned him. The watching cadets erupted in shocked chatter. "Again," Krell commanded. This time, he sent 2 opponents. Hannah fought them for 3 minutes before they yielded, gasping for breath while she breathed hard but remained standing. Krell called for silence. Endurance test. Long distance running. Human cadet versus our academy's best distance runners from 4 different species. The track was set for 20 kilometers. The other species champions lined up confidently. They were lean, optimized for efficient movement over long distances. Against them, Hana looked almost bulky, her muscle mass seemingly disadvantageous. The race began. For the first few kilometers, the other runners pulled ahead. Their forms were elegant, their breathing controlled. Hana settled into a steady pace that looked almost casual. By kilometer 5, one runner had dropped out. By kilometer 10, another was struggling. At 15 kilometers, only one alien runner remained ahead of Hana, and his pace was faltering. Hana hadn't slowed down. At 18 kilometers, she pulled even with the last competitor. At 19, she passed him. When she crossed the 20-kilometer mark, she was a full lap ahead, and she didn't look like she was ready to stop. How? One cadet whispered. How is that possible? Jiho, watching from the sidelines, spoke up. Humans are persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We can't outrun most creatures in a sprint, but we can keep going when everything else has to stop. The watching cadets looked at Hana with new understanding, and underlying that understanding was something else. Fear. You just keep coming, a Centauran student said quietly. No matter what, you just keep coming. The next test came from the biology department. They wanted to understand human dietary capabilities. When Hana casually mentioned that humans could eat things that would poison most species, the scientists insisted on a demonstration. They presented her with samples of food containing various microorganisms. Foods that had been sitting out. Foods with bacterial growth. The kind of contamination that would hospitalize most galactic species. Hana's stomach acid, with a pH level that could break down metal given enough time. Handled it easily. You consume dead organisms, a biologist noted, watching Hana eat a meal. Cooked muscle tissue from other animals. We're omnivores, Jiho explained. We eat plants and animals both. Cooking makes food safer and easier to digest, but humans can eat raw meat if necessary. Our ancestors did it for millennia. And your teeth, another scientist said, examining dental scans. Flat molars for grinding plant matter, sharp canines for tearing meat. You have predator teeth and prey teeth in the same mouth. Adaptability, Taiyang said. Humans can survive on almost any diet. Pure meat, pure plants, or any combination. That's why we spread across Earth's different environments. We could eat whatever was available. Over the following days, the test continued. Temperature regulation revealed humans could function in a wide range from near freezing to dangerous heat. Sensory tests showed decent vision, excellent pattern recognition, and remarkable endurance for discomfort. But the revelation that seemed to affect the Academy most deeply came during a demonstration about immune response. Dr. Yuna explained the concept of vaccines, deliberately exposing humans to weakened pathogens so their bodies would learn to fight the real thing. You intentionally infect yourselves with diseases? Administrator Quinn asked, her wings trembling with distress. In controlled ways, yes, Dr. Yuna confirmed. It trains our immune systems. Many deadly diseases. The news traveled faster than light across the galactic network. Within 3 days of the Academy's test results becoming public, every major news outlet in civilized space was running the same story. Humans were Deathworlders. Sentient beings had evolved on a planet that should have been impossible to survive, let alone thrive on. The Galactic Council chambers on the diplomatic station orbiting neutral space hummed with activity. Representatives from 47 species had gathered for an emergency session. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate different atmospheric requirements, creating invisible layers of breathable zones Throughout the massive hall. Council Speaker VRN called the assembly to order. His species, the Korthan, were known for patient diplomacy. But even Vion looked unsettled as he addressed the gathered representatives. "We face an unprecedented situation," he began. 5 years ago, we welcomed humanity into our community as a developing species requiring guidance and protection. Our xenobiological surveys of Earth were conducted remotely. We classified it as uninhabitable. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. On the viewing screens, Earth rotated slowly, no longer looking peaceful, but vaguely sinister now that everyone knew what survived there. "The question before this council," Viren continued, "is what this revelation means for humanity's place in galactic society." Council Bryn of the Quilarian Collective rose immediately. His skin flashed agitated reds and oranges. "It means we made a catastrophic error," Bryn declared. "We invited predators into our midst. Look at the test results from the Academy. Humans are biologically optimized for survival in conditions that would kill most of us within hours. They have predator adaptations. Their entire evolutionary history is violence." "That's an exaggeration," countered Representative Sullen from the Centauran delegation. "They're intelligent beings, same as us." "Intelligent predators," Bryn shot back. "Their planet produced them through constant warfare with their environment and each other. And there are 8 billion of them. 8 billion beings who consider a death world to be a comfortable home. What happens when they decide they want our worlds?" The chamber erupted in debate. Some species called for immediate restrictions on human settlement rights. Others argued for complete expulsion from the galactic community. A few voices urged caution and further study. In a private viewing room connected to the council chamber, Hana watched the proceedings with growing unease. Beside her sat Ambassador Dong Yun, Earth's senior diplomat, along with Jiho, Taiyang, and several other human representatives who had been summoned from the Academy. "They're afraid of us," Hana said quietly. "Can you blame them?" Dong Yun replied. His face was tired. He'd been in emergency meetings for 72 hours straight. "We spent the last 5 years presenting ourselves as harmless newcomers. Now they learn we're from a world they can't even visit without dying. The cognitive dissonance is difficult." On the main screen, General Thane of the Draken Hegemony stood to speak. Unlike many speakers, Thane looked pleased. "The Council wastes time with fear," Thane declared. "I see opportunity. Humans have demonstrated remarkable combat potential and physical resilience. The Draken Hegemony proposes a military alliance. With human soldiers supporting our forces, we could secure the frontier regions that have been too hazardous for conventional troops." "You want to weaponize them," Bryn accused. "I want to recognize what they are," Thane countered. "Warriors forged by the harshest conditions imaginable. We should ally with strength, not cower from it." More arguments erupted. The session continued for hours, looping through the same fears and proposals. Restrict human settlement. Limit human reproduction. Monitor human activities. Form military alliances. Quarantine Earth. The suggestions ranged from cautious to extreme. Finally, Speaker Viren called for humanity to address the council directly. Ambassador Donghyun stood, straightening his formal robes. "If I may," Dongyun said calmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You debate what to do about humanity as if we're a problem to be solved. But consider this, we didn't know Earth was unusual. We thought every species evolved in challenging conditions. We thought survival required adaptation and resilience." He gestured to the rotating image of Earth. "Yes, our homeworld is harsh by your standards, but it's also beautiful. It taught us to be strong, but it also taught us cooperation. No human survives alone on Earth. We build communities. We help each other. We create art and music and philosophy. We're not mindless predators. We're people. People who can crush our bones with their bare hands, Bryn muttered. People who choose not to, Dongyun replied firmly. Physical capability doesn't equal violent intent. We came to the stars seeking friendship and knowledge, not conquest. Fine words, said Councillor Vresh of the Arquillian Union. But words are easy. How do we know humans won't become aggressive as your population expands? You're already spreading to colony worlds. What happens in 100 years when there are 100 billion of you? Before Dongyun could respond, Speaker Viren made a decision. I'm calling Cadet Hana to testify. Hana's stomach clenched. She looked at Dongyun, who nodded encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, she walked into the council chamber. Standing before 47 species representatives was more intimidating than any test at the academy. Thousands of eyes, in hundreds of different configurations, focused on her. The weight of their attention was almost physical. Cadet Hana, Speaker Viren said gently, you triggered this crisis by revealing your origins. Tell us, what do you think humanity's place should be in the galaxy? Hana swallowed hard. She'd rehearsed diplomatic answers with Dongyun, but standing here now, she decided on honesty instead. I think we should be partners, she said simply. I've spent months at the academy learning alongside cadets from different species. I've made friends. I've struggled with subjects that came easily to others. I've helped classmates who struggled with things I found easy. That's what partnership means. But you're stronger than them, Bryn challenged. More resilient. Doesn't that create an unfair advantage? Different doesn't mean unfair, Hana replied. Yes, I can survive in higher gravity. But my Vespian classmate can fly. My Centauran friend can navigate by electromagnetic fields I can't even sense. Every species has unique abilities. Humans are good at surviving harsh conditions. That's not a threat. It's just what we do. A representative from the Delphian cluster spoke up. What about resources? Worlds suitable for human habitation are already scarce for other species. If humans can colonize harsher worlds, won't that create competition? Or cooperation, Hana said. There are worlds out there that nobody can currently settle because they're too dangerous. Humans might be able to help make those worlds accessible. We could work on terraforming projects or help with rescue operations in hazardous environments. Instead of seeing us as competition, maybe see us as specialists. The chamber fell quiet. Hana could see representatives conferring with their advisors, translation devices buzzing softly. Then Cadet Mira stepped forward from the observation section. As a civilian, she shouldn't have been able to address the council, but she did anyway. I want to speak, Myra announced. Security moved to escort her out, but Speaker Viren raised a hand. Let her talk. Myra's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with determination. I've spent the last week with the human cadets. I've trained with them, studied with them. And yes, I've been scared of them. But I've also learned from them. She turned to face the council directly. When we did zero-gravity rescue drills, I panicked. I couldn't orient myself. Hana talked me through it. She was patient and kind. When I was struggling with astrophysics calculations, Jiho spent hours helping me understand the concepts. These aren't mindless predators. They're classmates, friends. Your personal feelings are not relevant to galactic policy, Bryn said coldly. Maybe they should be, Myra shot back. You're making decisions based on fear and statistics. I'm telling you what humans are actually like. Yes, they're tough. Yes, they evolved in harsh conditions. But they're also loyal and compassionate and willing to help. The galaxy needs that. The debate raged for 3 more days. Representatives argued every angle. Economic implications, security concerns, territorial rights. Treaty modifications stopped back at the academy. Tensions boiled over. Human cadets found themselves isolated. Some students refused to work with them in group projects. Others stared with undisguised fear or hostility. Jiho was called a Deathworlder with such venom that he left the dining hall rather than start a fight. Taiyang wasn't as patient. When 3 cadets cornered him in a corridor and demanded he transfer out of their shared quantum mechanics class, he shoved past them. The physical contact was minimal. The one cadet fell, and suddenly security was involved, and a minor incident became a major diplomatic situation. Hana found herself mediating conflicts constantly. She explained human biology to frightened classmates. She vouched for Taiyang's character when he faced disciplinary review. She answered the same questions over and over. Are humans really that strong? Do you really come from that nightmare world? Are we safe around you? It was exhausting. One evening, sitting in her quarters, Hana received a message from her parents back on Earth. They'd seen the news. They were worried. Her mother's face on the screen looked concerned. Are you okay, sweetheart? The reports make it Sue. The emergency alert came at 0400 station time. Hannah jerked awake as her communication device screamed urgency codes she'd only heard in drills. She grabbed it with sleep-clumsy fingers, her heart already racing. All cadets report to briefing hall immediately. This is not a drill. The corridors buzzed with confused students as Hana dressed quickly and ran toward the briefing hall. She spotted Jiho and Taiyang ahead, both looking as disoriented as she felt. Around them, cadets from a dozen species hurried in the same direction. The briefing hall was packed. Admiral Crash stood at the podium, his courtly features grave. Behind him, a star chart displayed a remote system on the galactic frontier. 6 hours ago, we lost contact with Mayan Colony Theta 7, Admiral Crash announced without preamble. The colony is built on the moon of Hadros 4, a Class 8 hazard world. 247 beings from multiple species are trapped. Life support is failing. They have approximately 72 hours. The star chart zoomed in, showing the moon's hostile environment. Toxic atmosphere. Extreme temperature fluctuations. Geological instability. Even through the screen, it looked deadly. 3 rescue attempts have been made, the Admiral continued, his voice heavy. All failed. 2 resulted in casualties. The environment is simply too hostile for conventional rescue operations. Hannah felt her stomach tighten. She knew where this was going. The Galactic Council has authorized an unconventional approach, Admiral Crash said. A mixed-species rescue team led by human cadets. Your unique physiology may allow you to operate where others cannot. Silence fell across the hall. Every eye turned to the human cadets. This is voluntary, the Admiral emphasized. No one will be ordered into this situation. But we need volunteers immediately if we're to save those colonists. Hannah's hand was up before she consciously decided to raise it. Beside her, Jiho and Taiyang did the same. So did Suho, another human cadet she knew from engineering classes. To Hannah's surprise, other hands rose too. Myra's bioluminescent patterns flickered with determination. Several Vespian cadets volunteered. Even one Draken student raised his hand, but Admiral Crash pointed to specific cadets. Hannah, you'll lead. Jiho, medical officer. Taiyang, engineering. Suho, technical systems. And he paused, looking at the non-human volunteers. Cadet Mira, you're in. And combat instructor Krell has volunteered to accompany the mission. Krell stood from where he'd been sitting in the back row. The Draken warrior's expression was unreadable, but he nodded once to Hannah. The next 2 hours were frantic preparation. They reviewed environmental data, planned approach routes, and gathered equipment. The colony was too far for quick transport, and atmospheric interference meant they couldn't land directly. They'd have to approach on foot, 2 kilometers of hostile terrain. carrying equipment in conditions that had already killed trained rescue personnel. "This is insane," Mira muttered as they suited up in modified environment gear. Her patterns pulsed anxiously. "Probably," Hana agreed, checking her suit seals. "You can still back out." "No." Myra's patterns steadied with determination. "If you're going into that nightmare, you need someone watching your back." The transport ship dropped them as close as it could get, 2.3 kilometers from the colony. As the boarding ramp lowered, Hana got her first real look at the moon's surface. Thought it was worse than the briefing suggested. The ground was cracked and unstable, venting steam from underground thermal activity. The atmosphere was a murky brown, thick with particulates that abraded their suits. Wind howled at dangerous speeds, carrying fragments of razor-sharp minerals. The temperature fluctuated between near freezing and dangerously hot within minutes. "Equipment check," Hana ordered, her voice crackling through the team's communication system. Everyone reported functional suits and systems. They carried emergency supplies, medical equipment, and backup power cells. Everything they'd need for the rescue weighed them down, but there was no choice. "Move out," Hana commanded. Standard formation. Watch for ground instability. They started across the hostile landscape. Within minutes, Hana understood why conventional rescue attempts had failed. The environment was actively trying to kill them. Sudden steam vents erupted without warning. The ground shifted underfoot. The wind tried to knock them down, but Hana had grown up on Earth. She'd hiked through storms. She'd learned to read unstable ground on mountain trails. The patterns were different here, but the principles were the same. "Thermal vent ahead," she called out. "Move left, single file." They navigated around the danger. Taiyang marked it on their digital map. For the return journey, got an hour in. Myra started struggling. The gravity was within her species' tolerance. But the constant movement combined with the heavy equipment was exhausting her. "I'm slowing us down," she gasped. "You're doing fine," Jiho assured her, adjusting her suit's oxygen mixture to help with the fatigue. But fine wasn't enough. They were burning time. They didn't have. Hana made a decision. "Taiyang, take half of Myra's equipment. Suho, redistribute the rest among us." "I can carry my own gear," Myra protested. "I know you can," Hana said gently. "But we'll move faster this way. Save your energy for the colony." It helped, but not enough. Halfway to the colony, Krell stopped suddenly. His breathing labored. "Problem," he growled. "Airborne spores. My filters aren't catching them." Jiho moved to examine Krell's suit readings. "They're biological. Some kind of native organism. Your respiratory system is reacting badly. Can you continue?" Hana asked. Krell looked furious at his own weakness, but he nodded. For now, they pressed on. Every step was a battle against the environment. The particulate atmosphere abraded their suits. Temperature shifts stressed the seals. The unstable ground made every footfall uncertain. 2 hours in, they reached the colony. The facility was worse than the reports had indicated. Whole sections had collapsed. The main life support dome was cracked, leaking precious atmosphere into the toxic air outside. Through the transparent sections, Hana could see colonists huddled in emergency shelters. "They can't wait 72 hours, Suho said grimly, reading the structural data. "This whole facility could collapse in the next 12 hours. Hana felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. 247 lives depended on what she did next. "Taiyang, can we stabilize the structure long enough to evacuate?" "Maybe. But where do we evacuate them to?" "The transport can't land here." Hana pulled up the map data. There was a secondary facility 3 kilometers away, built into bedrock. More stable. If they could get the colonists there, transport could retrieve them. "We walked them out," Hana said. The team stared at her. That's impossible, Krell said flatly. Most of these colonists are Qualarians and Vespians. They can't survive 3 kilometers in this environment. They can if we carry them, Hana replied. Carry 247 beings? Myra's patterns flickered with disbelief. That's insane. It's necessary, Hana said. She opened the communication channel to the colony. This is Rescue Team Alpha. We're going to get you out, but you need to follow instructions exactly. They worked quickly. Jiho organized the colonists by physical capability. The stronger ones could walk with assistance. The weaker needed to be carried. They had emergency evacuation pods, but not enough for everyone. The mathematics were brutal. 4 humans. Each could carry 1 colonist in addition to essential equipment. Multiple trips. Hours of work. Through conditions that were already pushing their limits. We start with the critical cases, Hana decided. Injured first, then the young and elderly. The first trip was the hardest. Hana carried a Qualarian child who weighed almost nothing in her arms, but seemed impossibly fragile. Every step, she expected the environment to claim them. Steam vents erupted. The wind howled. The ground shifted, but they made it. The secondary facility was more stable, built into solid rock. They deposited the first group of colonists and immediately turned back. The second trip was worse. Fatigue was setting in. The environment seemed more hostile with each crossing. Krell's respiratory issues worsened despite Jiho's treatments. Mira was running on pure determination. Third trip. Fourth trip. The colony facility groaned and shifted with each tremor. Time was running out. On the 5th trip, carrying a group of 6 colonists between them, disaster struck. A massive seismic event cracked the ground directly in their path. Steam and toxic gas erupted, blocking the route. Alternate path, Hana commanded, already calculating. North vector, around the thermal field. It added precious minutes they didn't have, but there was no choice. They pushed through. Hana's muscles screamed with fatigue. Sweat poured down her face inside her suit. But she'd run marathons on Earth. She'd trained in her planet's punishing gravity. She kept moving. Beside her, Geo supported 2 Vespian colonists, his face set with determination. Taiyang carried emergency supplies and helped guide the walking colonists. Suho monitored systems and called out hazards. Even Krell, struggling with every breath, carried on. The warrior's pride wouldn't let him quit, trip after trip. Hours blurred together. The colony facility behind them groaned and cracked, sections collapsing one by one. Finally, impossibly, they evacuated the last colonist. Hana counted heads in the secondary facility. 247. Everyone accounted for as the transport ship's day. The rescue mission became the most viewed news event in galactic history. Footage from the team suit cameras showed everything. The hostile environment, the impossible journey, the determination of beings working together to save lives. Within days, every civilized world had seen Hana carrying colonists through toxic steam, Jiho treating injuries in impossible conditions, and even Instructor Krell pushing through his own suffering to help. The Galactic Council reconvened not in emergency session this time, but in celebration. Speaker Viren opened the proceedings with unusual warmth in his voice. 72 hours ago, we authorized a desperate mission. Many doubted it would succeed. Some hoped it would fail, to prove humans were not as capable as they claimed. Instead, we witnessed something remarkable. Not just human resilience, but the power of cooperation between species. The chamber, which had been filled with fear and hostility weeks earlier, now buzzed with different energy, respect, curiosity, hope. Counselor Bren, who had argued most strongly against humanity, stood to speak. His chromatic skin showed colors Hana had learned to read as embarrassment. I was wrong, Bryn said simply. I feared what humans represented. I saw predators where I should have seen people. The rescue mission demonstrated that strength paired with compassion creates something valuable. I formally withdraw my opposition to human integration. One by one, other counselors spoke. The Dragon Hegemony proposed joint training programs. The Vespian Collective offered research partnerships. The Centauran delegation suggested cultural exchange programs. Ambassador Don Yoon accepted the proposals with diplomatic grace. But in a private message to Hannah, he was more honest. You just changed everything. The entire trajectory of human-galactic relations shifted because you refused to leave people behind. At the Galactic Naval Academy, the atmosphere transformed overnight. The same students who had avoided human cadets now sought them out. Questions that had been asked with fear were now asked with genuine interest. Professor Veltaris approached Hannah in the corridor one afternoon, his skin shifting through respectful blues and greens. Cadet Hannah, he said formally, I owe you an apology. For what, Professor? For teaching an entire generation that Deathworlds were theoretical nightmares rather than homes to remarkable species. I'd like to correct that error, if you're willing to help. He presented her with a proposal. A new course, Deathworld Adaptation and Survival, taught by Professor Veltaris and the human cadets. It would teach the galaxy what humans learn naturally, how to thrive in harsh conditions, how to adapt, how to survive. I don't know if I'm qualified to teach, Hannah said uncertainly. You walked barefoot on Earth, the professor replied. You led a rescue through conditions that should have killed you. You're more qualified than anyone. The first class session was nerve-wracking. Hannah stood before 60 cadets from a dozen species, all watching her with expectant faces. She prepared notes, rehearsed her introduction, planned everything carefully. Then she threw it all away and spoke from the heart. Everyone thinks Earth is a nightmare, she began. And compared to your homeworlds, maybe it is. But to me, it's just home. I learned to swim in oceans that would poison most of you. I hiked mountains in gravity that would crush some species. I ate foods that would hospitalize others. And none of it seemed extraordinary because it was normal. She pulled up a hologram of Earth, spinning peacefully. The galaxy taught me that my normal is someone else's impossible. But here's what I learned from the rescue mission. Everyone's normal is different, and that's valuable. I can survive harsh gravity, but Cadet Myra can navigate by electromagnetic fields I can't sense. Instructor Krell has combat instincts I'll never match. Professor Veltaris knows sciences I'm still learning. The students listened intently. This class isn't about making you into humans, Hannah continued. It's about teaching you to think like survivors, to adapt, to look at impossible situations and find solutions. Because that's what my planet taught me, and that's what I can share with you. Over the following weeks, the class became one of the Academy's most popular. Hannah taught environmental adaptation. Jiho covered biological resilience. Taiyang explained engineering solutions to hostile conditions. Even Krell contributed lectures on maintaining mental discipline under physical stress. But the biggest changes happened outside the classroom. The Academy's dining hall, which had been informally segregated by species, started mixing. Hannah often found herself eating with Centauran cadets who wanted to hear about Earth's oceans, or Quillarian students curious about human music. The isolation that had defined the first months gave way to genuine integration. Mira became Hannah's closest friend. They studied together, trained together, and spent late nights in the observation lounge talking about their different worlds. Myra described her homeworld's stable climate and gentle gravity with nostalgia, while Hannah told stories about Earth's chaotic beauty. Do you miss it? Myra asked one evening. Earth, I mean. Every day, Hannah admitted. I miss the ocean, the smell of rain, walking barefoot on grass. Even the things that scared me sometimes, like thunderstorms or earthquakes. They're part of home. Will you go back? Eventually. But right now, I think I'm where I need to be. Learning, teaching, showing the galaxy that humans are more than just tough Deathworlders. Not everyone accepted humanity peacefully. 3 months after the rescue mission, a group of extremists calling themselves the Purity Coalition attempted an attack on human cadets. They planted an explosive device in the human quarters, timed to detonate during sleep hours. The device was discovered by a Vespian maintenance worker who immediately reported it. Security evacuated the area and disarmed the explosive. The extremists were caught within hours, members of a fringe group who believed humans would eventually dominate and subjugate other species. The attack failed, but it revealed something important. When the alarm sounded, dozens of non-human cadets rushed to the human quarters to help with evacuation. Mira arrived first, her patterns blazing with protective anger. Krell organized a security perimeter. Even former skeptics stood guard. "You're not just humans anymore," Myra told Hana as they watched security remove the explosive. "You're our classmates, our friends. Anyone who threatens you threatens all of us." The attempted attack had the opposite of its intended effect. Rather than driving species apart, it unified them against extremism. The Galactic Council passed new integration protocols, and most species embraced them. 6 months after the rescue mission, Ambassador Dong Hyun negotiated the final treaty details. Humans gained full settlement rights and council participation. In exchange, humanity committed to specialized roles in rescue operations, hazardous environment missions, and frontier exploration. Earth would train teams to operate in conditions other species couldn't survive. But the treaty included something else too: mutual support. Just as humans would help in harsh environments, other species would support humanity in areas where human capabilities fell short. It was true cooperation, recognizing that every species brought unique value. The Academy decided to honor the rescue team with a formal ceremony. Hana, Jehel, Taeyang, Suho, Mira, and Krell stood before the assembled student body while Admiral Kresh presented them with the Galactic Service Medal. These individuals demonstrated the highest ideals of our community, the Admiral said. Courage, cooperation, and compassion. They proved that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. After the ceremony, Hana found herself at the Academy's newest addition, a recreation of an Earth beach. The Academy had constructed it as a cultural space, using imported materials and environmental controls to create a small slice of Earth on the station. Real sand. Temperature and humidity matching Earth's coast. Even the sound of waves generated by careful engineering. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough to make Hana's heart ache with homesickness and joy. She took off her shoes and walked barefoot across the sand, feeling it shift beneath her feet. Behind her, other cadets watched uncertainly. The beach was open to everyone, but most aliens needed protective gear to tolerate the conditions. Myra approached wearing a special suit that regulated temperature and atmosphere. "Can I join you?" "Of course." They walked together, Hana barefoot and comfortable, Myra protected but present. Other cadets followed, some in suits, some adapting as best they could, all trying to understand what Earth meant to humans. Jiho arrived with Taeyang, both immediately stripping off their shoes to walk in the sand. Krell came too, his Draken physiology handling the conditions better than most aliens, though he still needed breathing assistance. "This is what you fought to protect during the rescue," Krell observed, looking at the artificial beach. "Not the colonists specifically, but this. The idea that everyone deserves a home that feels right to them. Something like that." Hana agreed as the sun set on this artificial beach, generated by light panels. but beautiful nonetheless. Students from a dozen species gathered. It was awkward. The environmental controls struggled with different species' needs. Some cadets couldn't stay long. Others needed constant suit support, but they were there. Together, Professor Veltaris approached, datapad in hand. Cadet Hannah, I've been reviewing applications for next semester's Deathworld adaptation class. We have over 200 students requesting.